Hello everybody, we are going to be talking about the endocrine system today, and then we're going to talk a little bit about genetics and heredity and what that has to do with neurobiology actually. So let's get going. The nervous system is not the only bodily system that affects behavior. The endocrine system likewise affects both mind and body. This system consists of glands that secrete chemicals called hormones, and these are responsible for stimulating our bodily functions like physical growth and development of sexual characteristics. Unlike neurotransmitters, which travel along nerves and across synapses, hormones are circulated through the body by the bloodstream. And this circulation allows the endocrine system to affect all areas of the body. It is very important for you to remember that hormones and neurotransmitters do the same thing. They're just produced, or I should say manufactured in the body in different places. Neurotransmitters are manufactured in the brain and the nervous system, whereas hormones are only manufactured in the endocrine system. But they act the same way. So, your major glands of the endocrine system, you have your pituitary gland and the thyroid gland. The endocrine system and the nervous system are in many ways intertwined, and both systems, for example, include the brain as a primary component. The brain controls the endocrine system's pituitary gland, and this is the organ that's responsible for regulating much of the endocrine system, so it's incredibly important. It regulates and controls the human growth hormone, prolactin, and oxytocin, and these are all incredibly powerful hormones that we have naturally occurring in our body. The pituitary gland also stimulates the growth of the adrenal glands, the thyroid gland, the ovaries, and the testes. Nerve fibers connect the pituitary gland to the hypothalamus, and this regulates the secretion of several pituitary hormones. And these hormones in turn regulate the function of the body's other endocrine glands, some of which that produce hormones that affect the brain. For example, an example of this would be the relationship shared by the nervous and the endocrine systems during the fight or flight response in stressful situations. When we're faced with a stressful situation, your sympathetic nervous system sends signals to the adrenal glands, which are located above the kidneys. And these glands help produce adrenaline and noradrenaline, and these hormones help prepare the body to cope with threatening situations. So, your adrenal glands secrete corticosteroids, which you can also buy in synthetic form, but it's incredibly dangerous. You hear about athletes using steroids often. They promote muscle development. They're corticosteroids are incredibly important in your body, but when you overload your body with them, it can be very dangerous. And let's go back to the thyroid gland real quick. The thyroid gland, it's incredibly important. It produces the hormone thyroxine, which affects your metabolism. So if you have too little thyroxine, it can cause hypothyroidism, and it can cause you to be incredibly underweight and unhealthy. And too much can cause hyperthyroidism, which can cause you to be overweight. Hypothyroidism is also linked to lethargy and depression. Here's a good graphic showing you our endocrine system. You have your thyroid gland, which is located in your neck. It controls your metabolism. Your pituitary gland is in your brain. Adrenal glands, again, are above your kidneys. And remember, they secrete steroids, adrenaline, noradrenaline, and all of these help you deal with stress. And then, of course, you have your testes and your ovaries. Testes if you're a male, ovaries if you're a woman. Ovaries produce estrogen and progesterone, and these are female sex hormones. And then testes in males produce testosterone, and that's the male sex hormone that establishes the development of primary and secondary sex characteristics. It's important to note that testes also produce trace amounts of estrogen and progesterone. Again, like I said, both glands produce estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. These are estrogen and progesterone are incredibly important hormones in the female body that regulate your menstrual cycle in order to allow you to reproduce. Estrogen has psychological as well as biological effects. Any woman going through menopause would tell you that. Low levels of estrogen and progesterone are found in males. Testosterone is the primary male sex hormone, and it aids the growth of muscle and bone, and it aids in the development of primary and secondary sex characteristics. And when I say primary sex characteristics, I'm talking about your actual genitalia. Secondary sex characteristics are sexual characteristics that develop during puberty, such as growing pubic hair, for males, hair on the face, your voice changing. For women, this would also be growing breast or growing hair, developing more of a womanly body. This is a good chart showing you the effects of teens, or what would happen if teenagers abuse anabolic steroids. For males, you can develop breast, you lose your hair. For females, you can develop facial hair and body hair, or even go bald. You can get a deepening of your voice. And both sexes, if you abuse steroids, you can have stunted growth, terrible acne. You can develop tumors on your liver, or have abnormalities that affect your heart. Not to mention the mood swings. So let's talk about heredity. Many of the biological influences on psychology are dictated by genetics and heredity. And heredity is the transmission of genetic characteristics from parents to offspring. Most people think of heredity in terms of physical traits like eye color and height. However, some psychological traits are likewise shaped by hereditary factors. For example, certain disorders are likely passed from generation to generation. We study heredity to help understand people's behavior, and the way we do that, the basic units of heredity are genes, and genes are always found in pairs, and each pair determines one or more traits. A single pair of genes will affect the development of some traits like blood type, while combinations of genes often control psychological traits like intelligence. The genes are located in a thread-like structure called a chromosome. And chromosomes are composed of DNA, and this is commonly known as the building block of life. And we're going to talk about DNA in just a second. Most normal humans have 46 pairs of chromosomes divided into 23 pairs, and the 23rd pair of chromosomes determines whether you are a male or a female. In each pair, one chromosome is from the father and one's from the mother. And again, the 23rd pair determines your gender. And when a child is born without all 46 chromosomes, physical and behavioral disorders may result, such as Down syndrome. This is a good example of genetic disorders on chromosomes. Parkinson's disease, you can see it's found on the 4th pair of chromosomes. Cystic fibrosis is on the 7th. Skin tumors are often on the 9th. Sickle cell anemia is on the 11th, Alzheimer's disease 14th, and Tay-Sachs disease is on the 15th chromosome. Like we talked about, during reproduction, chromosomes from both parents combine, so an individual inherits half of his or her chromosomes from the father and half from the mother. So for decades, psychologists have debated which is more influential in shaping a person's traits. Is it your biological factors, like your genes and your chromosomes, or is it social factors like family life, education, culture, and life experience? So when we talk about nature versus nurture, nature is what people inherit. That's your chromosomes, your genes, nothing that you can control. But your nurture refers to your environmental factors. So both views are very extreme when taken out of context, but most psychologists think that both nature and nurture play a role in determining psychological traits, and the role of heredity is still a very controversial topic. This debate has led to countless studies. Many of them are focused on people who are related by blood for the most part, because that's the easiest way to test, the nature factor. And these are some quotes among some psychologists on what they believe. Studies of twins, for example, have provided insights into how large of a role heredity plays in psychological development. And today, most psychologists believe that biological and social factors, nature and nurture, are central to the development of personality. There's some really neat twin studies that we're going to talk about, particularly the Jim twin study from the University of Minnesota. And twin studies tend to point out that our genetics are very strong. A lot of our similarities can be attributable to genetic factors, but there are also plenty of twins who have grown up separately and have been very different. And adoption studies are also very important to look at as well. And, you know, that's a good test of nature versus nurture. Current research in psychology, the Genographic Project aims to map the migratory history of all humankind. And so what they're basically trying to do is map the human genome as far back as they can. And what they do is analyze voluntarily contributed DNA from people around the world. And they're trying to find out how people migrated and populated the world. And there's actually a center for this Genographic Project in Greenwood, South Carolina. So that's really cool. And that's it. We're going back to the beginning now. All right, we're done. Thanks, guys.